Welcome back to Misunderstood. I'm your host, Candace van Dell, and today we have a very special guest. She is a globally recognized, award-winning Australian actress. She has over 40 credits to her name. She's appeared in TV series and many movies, such as Hacksaw Ridge, I Am Number 4, Triple Nine, Warm Bodies, Point Break, Take Me Home Tonight, which is where we first met, and most recently, you can catch her in The Fall Guy. But this woman also writes, produces, is a mother to 5 children, the co-founder of Love Well, author of Zen Mama's Guide to Finding Your Rhythm in Pregnancy, Birth, and Beyond, and co-host of the family podcast, The Mother Days. Please help me welcome my dear friend, Teresa Palmer.
That was the most amazing introduction. Thank you. Thank you, Candace. I felt like such an idiot because she was like, do you have a bio? And so I sent you this bio. And then afterwards I was like, this is embarrassing. It is literally just like every movie I've ever done with any sort of movie
No.
star or any. And then I said to Candace, I was like, you know what? Why don't you just kind of rewrite your own and you can focus more on the things like I'm a mom with a bunch of kids and I have a podcast and, I have a wellness company. My work doesn't define me. So it was so strange reading my bio and it was so heavily focused on acting. So thank you for kind of doing your own version of it.
Yes. Well, actually, it's funny because, I'll first say the reason I wanted you to be my very first guest is because I don't know how many years ago. I think we met in like 2008 or 2009, which we could totally talk about.
It was
But I think
earlier
it
than
was,
that.
was it?
We shot our movie together in
Yeah.
2007. I
We were
know.
babies.
It was
We were babies.
2007 when we filmed. We did this movie together, and Candace played my best friend. And she was the hottest, funniest, most gorgeous thing. And she was so American to me, like that Malibu American golden, like sunshine girl. And she had this, like, I remember her stomach, and it's forever somehow still looks the same
I
all
know.
these years later, this like rock hard golden stomach that I was like, what is that? What is this, how the American girls are built? Is this just what happens when you're an American girl? And you were so
Yeah.
funny. You were so funny in the movie. We hit it off, you, me, and the other little best friend, Natalie Kelly, who's a fellow Australian. And we had the
Uh-huh.
time of our lives on this movie, which at the time it was called Kids in America, with Topher
Yeah.
Grace and Anna
Yeah.
Faris, which is her name is actually pronounced Anna Faris, Chris Pratt, who we all knew was going to be a star on that movie. We were
Yeah.
like,
He's
that
amazing.
dude is amazing. He was so funny and so good, really
Yeah.
charismatic. Dan Fogler
Yeah.
was in it. And then it was like us three girls, like just living the dream, having fun. I was listening to Candace's American accent so I could repeat what she was doing.
Yeah.
But that's how we met, was
That's how
on
we
that.
met. I know. I was thinking about it. I randomly ran into um oh my gosh, now I can't remember her name. We've been talking over Facebook forever, and she was your voice coach.
Liz Himmelstein.
Lim Hellstein.
Liz.
She reached out to me over Facebook not too long ago, and she sent me this video of the three of us dancing in the trailer. Do you remember
No,
that? We do these
I,
weird dances,
yes. We
and we
were
had nicknames for each other. We're like, "You're Earth Mother, you're Earth
Hooker. You were
Angel." Like we had this.
Hooker. Hooker. She called everyone Hooker.
Everyone's my hugs. It's
Everyone
funny. I
was
still
my,
use that.
hey, Hooks, hey, Hooks. Yeah. And it was so funny. I reckon I was 21 when I did that movie. And like maybe 2 years later, I brought Candace. I was like, Candace, come to Australia. Like, woo. She
Oh
came
yeah.
down to Adelaide and you actually attended I had this like very late 21st birthday party. And guys, I tell you this right now, all my little Adelaide guy friends from school, like jaws agape, this like, hot
Stop.
American bombshell, blonde bombshells like, "Hey, hooker, woo, what's up, Adelaide? Yeah." Everyone was like, "Oh," like obsessed with her. And they were like, "There's never been a more hot girl in
Is
our
this really
lives.
happening right now?
This is really happening." And all the guys were obsessed with Candace. She comes to my she comes to my 21st, like, people's minds were blown.
I can't even believe this is my life right now.
So that's where this beautiful spiritual guru, this is where she came from. And even then she was schooling us all. She was talking about her beautiful like spirituality. I think you were the first person to even introduce me to like manifesting and ideas of a higher power. And I was like, this is the goddess. Like this goddess, like just she knows all. She's gorgeous, she's funny, and she's soulful. Anyway, here we go. That's your intro.
I cannot, cannot right now. That was literally 17 years ago, if I'm doing the math. What just happened to my podcast?
Oh my god. Opening with a
The best
bang,
story
literally.
ever. She came in with a bang, literally. Um, where to go from that epic intro? So Tez, you're the best. This is amazing. I actually can't believe that's how you saw me because I probably knew it back then, but like I didn't know. You know, when you're younger and you like don't know that people
Yes.
have these perceptions of you, you just like know who
Yes.
you are or you think you know who you are.
Totally.
Um, but the reason I wanted to bring up the movie, thank you for making that so perfect, is because I do remember you said at the beginning, you said, my career isn't even like my purpose. And what I
Yeah.
remember about you pretty much right when we met, because we hung out, we had deep talks, we had a lot of fun, but we also did have those deep talks. And I remember you told me, I just really want to be a mom of 5 or more. You told me
Yeah,
that. You say, "I
I
want, like, 5
know.
or more kids," and I was like, "How are you gonna do that with this big career we knew you were gonna have?" Like, you were already getting awards and shit when you were, like, 20, but I was like, "You're gonna be, like, famous, so how are you gonna do that?" And you're like, "I don't know, but that's what I really wanna do. I really wanna be a mom, and I want a lot of kids." And I
Yeah.
think about it because that's always how I've seen you. Even all the
Mm,
success you've had and, like, watching you along the way, everyone knows this who knows you and who sees you online is you've always remained the same girl, like super
mm,
authentic, super raw and real. You're like, I don't give a fuck. This is who I am in like the most
mm.
sweetest way. And you've just become who you always were. And it didn't sway you. Like nothing swayed you. And that's one of
Aw.
my questions for you is like, how the hell did you, this is big. How did you stay true to you through all of this? Like you have such a big life. You do so
Hmm.
many things.
That's so sweet. I love hearing that
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
because one of the funny stories that my manager David Seltzer always talks about is that I had this massive opportunity because
Mm.
how it all started was my very first movie I ever did premiered at the Cannes Film Festival. So I was like, "What?"
No big
Like this
deal.
yeah, but it was the first movie, so I didn't even know that that was not normal, that your movies I was like, "Oh, we're getting into this festival called Cannes," and everyone's like, "Wait, what?" Like, "You're going to Cannes with your first
You
movie?"
mean the one and only? Yeah.
Yeah, which I've never been to since. But I was like, "Yes, oh my god, this is so fun." Like, "Ooh, what a whirlwind." But I kept reminding my team. So it started with an Australian team, and then I went to Cannes, and then, of course, I had all these American agents coming after me. And I was like, "Hey, everyone, just letting you all know, I really wanna be a mum." And everyone's like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." And I'm like, "No, no, no, really, I really would like to be a mother." And, they're like, "There's time for that. You're literally 21 years of age." And I was like, "Yes, I
Mhm.
know. Ideally, I'd be a young mum, so in about 2 years' time."
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
and I was on a mission. I was working a lot, but I was also on a mission to find a husband. I was like, "Where is he? I need to find my husband. I need to start cracking and having babies." And I went from like
Yep.
relationship to relationship. It would last about 2 years' time. Each relationship was about 2 years, and I was like, not really the one. That's not quite right." And then I found my person, but I think because that was always my driving force in my life was
Mm.
becoming a mother. The career stuff felt like such a bonus, but I didn't
Yeah.
put all my eggs in one basket. I wasn't
Yeah.
so focused, so determined. I did it kind of crappily. I mean, I had all these amazing opportunities. There's a lot of sort of schmoozing and turning up to events and having to be on and really like network. I was terrible at all of that and I had no interest in any of it. So I actually didn't go to a lot of the events. I didn't do any of the networking. And maybe if I had really focused on it, maybe things would be even bigger and more grand and whatever in my career. But because that was never my focus, I was like, I would like to be a working actor working with filmmakers and other talent and crew that I deeply admire and connections that I find meaningful and telling great stories. And I
Yeah.
want to earn a living from that. But I don't want
Yeah.
to get so famous that I don't have a sense of normalcy, so that
Mm.
I wanted my children, my future kids, to be able to grow up normally. And so that was always my sweet spot. I was like, okay, how can I make enough money that it sustains me? I'm doing great work, working with great people, but I also get to just be a regular mum. And I think because that was the forefront of my mind, that's sort of the life I created for myself. Is I'm in that nice sweet spot and it feels really good here. So thank you for saying that. And I have to say a big shout out to my mom. My mom Paula, who is
Yeah.
just the sweetest. Like she's just so grounding, and she's a pensioner. She's got a disability pension. We grew up in government housing. I just had a really normal upbringing that, even though this world feels wild and really in some ways it can be quite confronting, I'm just like, I get to just be me in this world. And
Mm.
I find that the more I lean into who I authentically am, the more opportunities are coming my way. But it took me a long time to kind of figure that out. I think when I was younger, before I had babies, I was shape shifting according to how my team thought I should present, or how I thought a director would want me to be. And now I'm like, hey, this is me. This is the way I am. And what's meant to be mine will be mine, and what's not is not for me.
Literally incredible. And I know all that about you because I know your mom. I know your family. I know they're the most grounding, sweet, amazing humans. And I'm like, of course, this came from there. But what I think is interesting, a couple of things is I feel just by, you know how I like to work things spiritually. And I feel
Mm,
like because you weren't focused on it is why it became so amazing in a lot of ways. Cause you weren't in the way, you weren't resisting what is because you
mhm,
weren't wanting so much. Right. And
mhm,
I think that that is why you're so able to have such a successful life in these dimensions because also the thing that you are focused on that is your purpose is your heart and soul. And I truly believe that when we're in our authentic purpose, our heart work, our soul work, our service work, which you do a lot of, that's where the abundance is. That's the energy of
mhm.
abundance. And I think a
Yeah.
lot of people think this is why I love this because a lot of people think, oh, when I'm rich, when I'm famous, when I, am seen in the world in this way, I'll be happy. And I'm like, that's the opposite of what will
Yes.
happen because you're going externally when all that real power of fulfillment and joy and manifestation is in your empowerment,
Internal.
which is in your heart,
Yeah.
100%.
And you see a
And
lot of broken
also
people in this industry because of that, because it's like they're
because of that,
chasing the external validation rather than finding it internally. And you see these little shells of people and all constantly moving the bar further and further. I'll be happy when, as soon as I get that job with
yeah,
that director.
never enough.
And it's
Yeah.
erosive. It's very erosive.
Yeah, I really love that you've always had that mentality. And I also love that you said, you're in it, but you're not of it. I've always
Mm,
said that when I was in the modeling industry and stuff, I'm like, God, this is I lived in LA, but this isn't like who I am, but I'm good at doing it. But it wasn't me. And it became a point in my life where I needed to just do me. I wanted to be, my authentic self out loud. And I feel like expressing your authentic self out loud, it gives you all the things you think you're going to get by being something other than that. Do you know what I
Mhm.
mean?
A
It's like,
hundred
just be
percent.
you, like you just said that. You just said, "This is me. I'm showing up. I'm not gonna be what they want me to be. Hopefully, they'll like what I am because you can't fake it. You
Yeah.
can't you
You
can't make it up,
can't.
and you can't block it. Mm-mm.
And
So,
sorry, just let that car
yeah.
go. It's very loud there. There we go. Yeah, I think if you're just your own vibrant self, like there's only one of you in the world. You're unique and you need to lean into that. And I do think like earlier on in my career, there was sort of this old school. In fact, I was just talking to on our podcast, we interviewed Jessica Alba, and she was talking about the same thing too. Is like in the earlier days of the industry when there was like such a pigeonholed idea of who you are and what you represent. Um, I was sort of like brandished as a type of character, a type of actress. Like these are the roles that I play. And I was like, oh, I will cater to that because then I'll get the roles. And I remember feeling really unfulfilled. And I started getting this longing sense of home. I was missing home. And what I now equate the home feeling to
Mhm.
is self. Like it is
Mhm.
itself. And I had
Still.
lost self. And so this like longing for to go home. And I kept thinking, oh, I just have to physically just go back home to Australia and I'll get that feeling. But it actually took saying, this actually doesn't serve me. It doesn't feel like me. I'm just going to be who I am. I'm going to take these smaller roles that serve me more than these bigger ones that you think are right for me, but don't really fill me up. And then I felt a return to self and I felt a return to home. And that's when I unlocked actually through our mutual friend Brooke Stone, I unlocked this wonderful connection with my husband, Mark Webber. And it wasn't until I returned back to that place that I
Ooh.
finally found the thing I was always looking for, which
Ooh.
was that person that I was going to fold into my home. And, if it wasn't for our friend Brooke, who kept, like, helping me see the truth because she was like, "He is amazing. He is an amazing person," and I kept trying to steer over in a different direction. I still always say, like, "Thanks to
Mhm.
Brooke, I'm with
Thanks,
my
Brooke.
person. Thanks, Brookie."
That's so amazing because my question that I was gonna ask you is how did you know it was the one?
It
How did
was
you know? And now I know,
it
home, but
was
in your
home.
words. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, it
yeah.
was. I had these relationships, I was on a mission. I was on such a mission to find my person. And I think in some ways, the person that I was with when I met you, who I um my very first boyfriend, he
Mhm.
was that was like the greatest sense of home that I had felt, like the deepest love and the home. And he really represented what I thought was gonna be marriage and babies, and of course, I was
Yep.
very young, but this other sort of world of the industry came in and sort of infiltrated and shook up this idea of home. So then we ultimately broke up during the filming of Kids in America, and
Mhm.
that was a deeply painful experience for me, but I knew I had to sort of crack open and explore this other opportunity that was coming my way in the form of the industry and moving to America. And that first love, I actually think I was trying to find that feeling again. So in every relationship, I would be in this state of comparison, comparing it back to my first relationship. And it didn't feel
I've
like,
been there.
yes, I know you have because we talked about it. And it didn't have these like, I would get so close to the feeling and it didn't have it. And then the boyfriend before Mark, I was like, I was so, like, blindsided. I was like, "I think I found the home feeling." Yet I was in a really emotionally abusive situation. And it took my friends, again, Brooke was one of those people, to really, like, hold a mirror up. And
Yeah.
I realized that I was losing self in these relationships. And so when I met Mark, he was heart forward, all love, 100% in, like, like,
Mhm.
just fully in. And
Mhm.
I think because I had
Mhm.
been used to not having
Mhm.
fully emotionally available partners, that was less appealing to me. And I was like, that's not so attractive. Like that, he's just put his heart on his sleeve and is showing me all his cards. And I kind of want a bit of mystery. I want a little bit of damage.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
ultimately, I kind of broke up with him and then decided, actually, one of my other best friends, Annabelle, was like,
Mhm.
Teresa, if I could give you any gift in the entire universe, it would be Mark, because she'd spent some time with him. And
Um,
she's a sister, and she was like, it's him. Like, please give him another go. And I
they all
remember,
see it before we do.
yes,
They
especially when they're your
do.
sisterhood and they
Yeah.
want the best for you. And I rang him after I had broken up with him and I heard his voice. And for the first time, and I was in a particularly vulnerable state. I was very hungover. I was mourning this like old relationship, but also like moving
Mhm.
through a lot of healing from the abuse. And I hear his voice, and it's like my nana or someone. My nana is one of my team of light who have passed. But I was like, I just heard the word home. And I was like, that's it. Home. I'm home. And then that, and I have to tell you, like, we had a pretty tumultuous like first couple of years. My husband was a recovering addict and prescription pills. And we went through this dance. We navigated so much together. I really got to know what addiction is like and trauma. We
Mhm.
unpacked trauma together, and we
Mhm.
are now more connected all these years on. So that was in 2012. So we've been together for 12 years now. He
Yeesh.
is my person, my best friend. We spiritually are on the same path together. And I'm way more attracted to him now and way more in love with him now than I was at the beginning. And a lot of people talk about the butterflies, but I'm in the
Mhm.
reverse. I'm like, it's getting deeper and more soulful and more connected.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my, there's so many things I could pick apart from this. I I'm gonna start there because I say this a lot in my groups and stuff is that, the healthy one after you've been through something that isn't is not what you want. It doesn't
Mhm.
feel right. It feels annoying sometimes. It's like
Mhm.
whatever, but there's this thing of contentment that you need to get used to almost.
Yeah.
And I find that like what you just said, like it was tumultuous at the beginning. And that usually is a good thing, like a good sign in
Mhm.
my book, because you're getting to know the authentic ins and outs and truth of someone. When someone's like, oh, it's a fairy tale, I'm like, you're going to break up
Yeah.
because you don't
Yeah.
know each other. You
That's
don't
right.
know each other. And people used to laugh at me because I would like front load my crazy. I'm like, this is the shit you're going to deal with. Like I would tell them right away.
That's
And they'd be
great.
like, like, just because I don't like want anyone to leave me at any time, I just want to let you know right now, this is why you might leave me at some time. And people are like, if that's as bad as it is, I think we're good. I'm like, no, you don't understand. And then like it was actually much better because I just front loaded you. And so
That's right.
people think I'm crazy for doing that, but I'm like, no, like for example, when I got divorced, when I went on my like first date, I'm like, just I'm gonna want to get married one day. People are like, why would you say that right away?
Oh,
You're gonna
yeah.
push him away. I'm like, no, I'll push away the wrong one, but the
Oh,
right one
that's
will be
right.
into the truth.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
told Mark, "Oh,
Like,
just so you know, I want 6 kids. I know you already have 1, but I
yeah,
want 6." He
yeah,
was like,
yeah.
"Cool, got it."
Yeah, yeah. You're like, "Let's wait for date 2," but that's cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, like, whatever. But I wanted to say this about your journey that you explained of having that first love and then being shooken up by the industry and going through all this stuff. I had a similar experience, and what I'll say is, because I can totally mirror everything you just went through, what I'll say is I kinda like the shakeup and all the shit that
Yeah.
happened because now when I have it, I'm never letting it go, and I'm not gonna doubt. I'm not gonna doubt what feels like the self. I'm
Mhm.
not gonna doubt what's home for me. It's like you have, like, this Mac Daddy massive lesson of, like, who you really are and how not to fuck with that. And once
Yes.
you know the opposite, like, a lot of people are like, "How are you wise, Candace? Like, how are you wise?" And I say, "'Cause I made so many mistakes, and I went through so much
Mhm.
shit that I actually learned from it and then did the thing that the learning taught me instead of redoing the patterns again and again." That's what gets
That's
people
right.
screwed up, but we'll all go through shit. I love that you even explored some of that here and said, "Yeah, you had some crazy relationships and you went through some
Yes.
emotional abuse. Me too." And yeah, that's what makes you wise is that you know
Uh-huh.
this stuff.
Yeah,
And
and
people think they're
I
just spirituality is like, go ahead.
oh, no, I was gonna say, and I think that when you're in the shit and you can pull yourself out of it, it's like you pull this little thread and then all the patterns reveal themselves. I was
Yeah.
able to look back on after I had that relationship, my first home relationship, I was able to look back on all the relationships I had after that point and just see this pattern emerging. And then
Interesting.
also unpack for me what was driving me to find the family and what was like, why did I want to be a mum so badly? Why did I want to find
Mhm.
my people so
Mhm.
badly? And a lot of that was looking at the dysfunction I had in my own childhood and my own
Yes.
life and wanting to have this perfect family. It was a part of this kind of brokenness within me to heal. And I wanted to like rewrite the narrative of what it feels like, what a childhood feels like, and what, because I didn't have any full siblings to play with or anything. I was an only child. I had older half siblings, but I was like, I am growing with these as I'm nurturing these children. I'm
Mm.
healing my own inner child wound, watching their interactions with each other and how they are playmates. And, my kids right now are out there playing a game together where they're all in this like cubby house and they've got challenges and it's the four of them from age 2 to 10 and they've been playing for hours and hours and hours together with no devices, and I was like, that is deeply meaningful to me because it's what I didn't have as a child. And I've got to create something that is really beautiful. And it's almost like this soothing balm for some of the experiences that I didn't get to have in my own childhood. So it's important to recognize that too, is like, all right, the things you do call in, where are they stemming from?
Why?
Coming from?
Yeah.
Why? Yeah.
Yeah. What I love about that is, I talk a lot about narcissistic parents. And one of the things with narcissistic parents is they don't want you to have what they didn't have because it triggers their wounds that they're not looking at. And
Mm.
someone like you is actually doing the healing through having what you didn't have, which is a
Hmm.
phenomenal parent. And for me, I always said if I naturally got pregnant, that'd be great, but I was never driven towards it. I
Yeah.
was more driven towards healing. And what I noticed through 12 years of coaching people is I heal every day by helping others heal. That's my sort of I heal your inner
Yes.
child as I'm healing my inner child. And
Yes.
it's so it's my own way of mothering. And it's funny because I also think when you come from a home sometimes that doesn't feel like home, right? Yours
Mhm.
felt like home, even though it was, stuff going on.
Yeah.
Mine never did. Yeah, stuff going on. That's everybody. But mine never felt like home. I never felt seen or safe in my home. And
Mm.
I felt like I'm going to make my life about feeling seen and safe in my truth. And I don't know if that's a family of my own or not. And then I realized that family and things like this don't have to look the way that it looked when I grew up. I don't have to have
Yeah.
kids and a husband, or maybe I do. But for me, I've found that that's just how I redefined it. But it's the same thing. My life feels very accurate to who I truly am, and very
Mm.
supportive and nurturing to who I am. And I think I'll tell you, a lot of women who grew up with, let's say, emotionally immature parents,
Yes.
tell me the same thing. Like most of the women that I coach who maybe had like a mother that wasn't very mothering, they don't have kids because they don't know what it
Mhm.
feels like and they
To
don't want to be
nurture
like
and be
that.
nurtured. Mhm, mhm,
Yes. And
mhm.
they don't want to mess them up and they don't want it to take away from them. Like there's all these interesting fears that come up. So I always wondered about you, what was her big drive? And you just answered it perfectly. And it makes just
Mm.
the way you're so authentic gives so much insight because you've dialed down into yourself so much. How do
Mm.
you think that your inner work is benefiting your kids right now?
We are really open with our kids.
Mhm.
And it's different from, I think, generations before where it was like kids are to be like looked at but not really heard, or like they're cute but don't include that. It's like children are in this lane, adults are in this lane. I am not afraid to show vulnerability to my children in a way that humanizes it. If they
Mm.
overhear Mark and I having a fight, right? And we're in our bedroom, they overhear it. We will always come out and be like, "Hey guys, just letting you know, Dad and Mum, we've had a bit of a disagreement." You know, the way that sometimes Bodhi, you and Forrest will have a fight, or Poet and Forrest, you guys will get into a little tiff. Like Dad and I just had that. And I don't know if you were able to overhear it, but I want to like show you this is what making up looks like. And we're always affectionate in front of the
Wow.
kids. And we're like, do you know what? He wanted one thing, I wanted something else. And we came together and we have made up. And this is a part of life. So I think that because I just felt like a real kid when I was younger. I was just a kid
Mm.
doing kid things. I have to say, I do miss that in modern day childhoods as well, because I do think we can push our kids to be so progressive that the innocence is lost.
Mm.
They know about all these social movements, and politically there's a lot of talk, and
Mm.
everything that we are showing our children. I think it's a fine line. You want them to still be able to be kids and not have the anxiety of big world problems, but also saying like, mummy sometimes has a bad day and she feels bad. And we have this special thing that we do. If of the two of us, Mark is the one who will raise his voice more than I do.
Mhm.
Um, but he'll say, "Oh, can I have a daddy do-over? Can I have a daddy do-over?" I actually
Oh,
I didn't want to raise my voice like that. Sorry, I was feeling really angry and I got this feeling and it came out, and that's how I started raising my voice at you. "Do you mind if I can have a daddy do-over?" And they're like, "Yeah, you can have a daddy do-over." Um,
incredible.
and I love that. And I would say that because I've worked on my own patterns, I'm much better at catching myself when I'm feeling triggered by one of the children. And
Mhm.
children are your greatest triggers, like they really are. They'll be, especially if one of them's really similar to you. I have one of my kids, and I could not be more similar. And I find that
Mhm.
I'm more triggered by them because I'm like, oh, I
Mhm.
don't like that part in me, but I'm
Of
seeing that
course.
they're having that behavior. And so
Yeah.
we just talk to them open we just talk about spirituality. We talk about being our best selves, about like how to be the best person we can be, about like being a human being and having thoughts and feelings, and
All
they're
the
just
feelings.
feelings. And sometimes when you're in your head, they're just little movies that we've created and they're not based on reality. And that's called anxiety. And if you start reminiscing about the past, like, and you're feeling sad, like, those feelings can feel like sadness or depression because we're not being present. Like, how do we get present? And none of this was a conversation I had with my parents growing up. And I do
Oh.
like that it's an open line of communication with our kids, especially as they're getting older. I've got a 10-year-old now, and he said to me the other day, he was like, he wrapped his arm around me. He was talking to me. He's got a girlfriend, and he was talking to me about some feelings about girlfriend. And I was like, "Mom, you are my best friend." He was like, "I can talk to you about anything, like anything. If I ever feel sad or scared or worried about something, I come straight to you, and you really know how to make me feel better. You really are my best friend." And I was like, "That's it. That
That's
is it.
literally everything.
That's everything." I was like, "Oh,
Nailed
yes,
it.
I love it." Yeah, it felt really nice.
Oh my God. That would be like gold star to be a mother. Holy cow. I love him. What I think is so incredible about that. By the way, I see a future children's book about emotions that we co-write. That would be insane
Done.
because what you
Yes.
just said, I want to put it in writing. That was so good. But
Uh,
it's like, right? You allow all the emotions. And what I love, so many things I love about what you said, but one specifically, because I myself as a kid and so many clients I deal with have this crazy spiritual perfectionism, this perfectionism. And what you're teaching them is, oh, like Mark's like, "Can I do a daddy do-over?" You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be
that's
real.
right.
You just
Yeah.
you just have to try. And that's such a profound lesson that people don't
Mm.
realize is really big because I think one of the things that really stunts our evolution, our emotional intelligence, all of that is this idea of doing it right the first time.
Yeah.
And I had it because I'm like, "Oh, I can't do anything wrong. Then that means something's wrong with me." And what you guys
Mhm.
are doing is saying, "None of it's wrong. mom and dad, we have issues, and then we have resolve.
Yes, exactly.
Resolve is the
Mhm.
most healing thing. It really takes away trauma. Everyone says that,
Yes.
and it's true. Like, when you go, I have fights with my boyfriend all the time, and I'm like, we need to resolve this before anything else because this doesn't need to hang over in the emotional state, and
Mhm.
it's always resolved. And I find the couples and families that don't know how to resolve have all these lacks of communication, lacks of authenticity. One of the biggest issues I see with young people is an uncertain identity because they
Yeah.
can't feel all their things and feel resolve in that. And I think you guys are
Mhm.
doing an incredible job. I can't wait to meet your kids when they're older and be like, what are they going to do in the world? They're going to be
Aw,
like full
that
potential rise, like
wow.
crazy.
That's so
So
sweet.
good.
And of course, we're imperfect, but it's about that. It's embracing the imperfectness and the
Yeah.
humanness of us.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's really nice to not feel afraid to, you and I have both been through this pregnancy loss. When
Mhm.
I went through my most recent one, I my instinct as a child, because it's my pattern, is to soldier up. So I just like put on my armor
Mhm.
and I just move through. And I did do that for the first day.
Oh.
And just like, yeah, taking care of everyone, everything's fine, not a big deal. Just got this awful news that my baby had died in utero, and all
Oh
good.
my
Just
God.
move on, taking care of my kids. And
Wow.
then later that night, when like the house was still and everyone was quiet, I was going to sleep and I thought everyone was asleep. I lost it and I was sobbing, crying. And my little forest sage, my little guy, he heard me crying and he was half awake. He wrapped me up in his arms and
Mm.
put my head in his lap, and he stroked my head
Wow.
as I was crying. He's 7, and held my face with his hands, wiped my tears from my face. Um, I immediately, of course, felt vulnerable and then felt guilty that my son would have to see me in this situation. But it really brought everyone like to a place where we could all share our feelings about it. And it was a deeply like
Mm.
moving moment where it was okay to show kids that sometimes we can feel like we have to fall apart, but we also can rebuild. And
Yeah.
you can't have one without the other. And it was just a
Yeah.
really good reminder that, and Forrest talks about it. He was like, Mom, remember when I held you when you cried? And
Oh my
and
God.
now look at you, like now we've moved on. And then he had his space to cry, and the kids, it was just really beautiful being open about that, because I think, it goes against my conditioning. I want to like, "Ooh, everything's fine. Everything's fine. Squish feelings down."
Yeah.
So yeah, that's been a
But
really
it
beautiful
shows
thing.
them too that like you're such a safe space even when you're falling apart.
Yeah.
That's one of the things is vulnerability, I believe, is one of the biggest blocks to everything because people don't want to be vulnerable because
Mm,
they're afraid of what will happen or how others will see them or what that will mean. And what I just saw in your example is, hey, Forrest, 7-year-old genius, I'm going to be really vulnerable and I'm still safe for you. And you're safe for
mhm.
me. And it's
Yeah.
still, yeah, it's still good, all good. And I also love it that you made the deep loss that I know that experience is
Mhm.
um okay. Like, yes,
Yeah.
guys, the truth is mommy lost the baby and we all know that. So now it's gonna all make sense that I am really sad and it's normal to be really
Mhm.
sad about that. Just so
Yes.
many good things on so many levels to heal in that way. It just makes you closer and closer and closer and
Mhm.
more whole. And that's just incredible. Talk about you manifesting the feeling of home on the inside out. I mean, you have the most adorable, enlightened group of little children
Oh,
ever. I
that's
mean,
so
it's
sweet.
quite special. Quite
Um,
special.
well, we definitely try. And we also want more babies, because I can't stop. Can't
Yeah.
stop, won't stop.
How many do you want?
I I would like at least another 2. So,
Wow.
but my
I
number
see
is
it.
8. My number is 8, infinity 8. And Isaac, I have my stepson as well. So
Yeah.
right now we have 5 total. So if I gave birth to 3 more, then we'd be at 8 total.
Hopefully they're twins or triplets
Oh,
along
that's
the
what I'm
way. I don't
going
know.
for. That is what I'm going for, twins
Twins.
next.
I'm into that. I'm into that for you. I just saw that. So
Thanks,
I don't know, you
thanks.
know.
Well, here we go, hopefully.
Well, I could talk to you for 5 more hours, but I want to know if there's anything else you want to share or add before we close out, and also where we can find you and all the news that you have to share.
Oh, you're so cute.
You're so
No,
cute.
I know I feel like I've shared a lot today, but what I did want to say was that,
Yeah.
yeah, I really want to reiterate this because I wasn't exposed to this in Australia or in South
Mhm.
Australia where I was living at the time. That the spirituality, I grew up Catholic, so it was a very dogmatic approach to like religion, and it did not serve me, and I did not identify with
Mm.
that once I got into my teenage years. And then I was kind of stabbing in the dark, like, well, trying to find like, what is my belief system?
Mm.
And you started that conversation for me. You were one of the very
Mm.
first people in my life who introduced me to like that idea of consciousness and light, and all the words in your vocab back then are all a part of mine now. And so
Oh.
you were the introduction to all of that, and to watch you really blossom into the person that you are, and the way that you are using these wonderful gifts to affect positive change with masses of people. It's really admirable. And I just wanted to share that with you because I love the work that you're doing, and you're so authentically who you are. You were always this person. This was always within you. And I see what you're doing, and it's such like a beautiful selfless thing, and I think you're just remarkable, and I knew that you would find that people would flock to you, like flock to the light. I knew it. As soon as you started talking about this, I was like, there are going to be so many people whose lives will be changed because of this. And this is what
Mm.
you're doing. So thank you for this platform and inviting me to be your first guest, because it's deeply meaningful.
I want to go ball right now. So I'm going to
Oh.
do that. But before I do that, no, I that means so much to me, obviously, especially because of the incredibly authentic woman that you are, but also because we have known each other for 2 lifetimes. But but, you know, I just really love you, and I think you're just an incredible human, and just that reflection made my day, and probably my month
Mm.
and maybe year, but having you as my first guest was really special to me. I literally, just so you know, my boyfriend remembers meeting you, and he said I was like, "Who should I have as my first guest?" This was like a month ago when I
Mm.
first launched it, and he's like, "Teresa." And I was like,
Aw.
he thought of it because I always talk about you. I'm like, "Look at how cute
Mhm.
this is. Oh my god," you know? He's like, "Teresa," he's like, you were the first interview I ever did when I started this career
Yes,
on your
yes.
Zen life." Or
Uh-huh.
wait, Zen Talk. Was it Zen Talk?
No,
Your Zen what?
it
I don't
was
know. It
Zen
was called
Life.
TED
Yeah.
Talks. It was
Oh,
TED
TED Talks. It
Talk.
was my TED Talks.
Oh
Yeah,
my
yeah,
god. Yeah, and I was like, "Yeah, she was the first interview. You interviewed me. That was the first one I did." And I'm like, "She's gotta be my first one. This is the tone, this
Full
is the vibe.
circle.
There's no one but her." And I reached out to you, and right away you wrote me back. You're like, "Of course." And I'm like, "This is happening." And it was
It's
just
happening.
so special to me because of
11/11.
everything. 11/11, and
At
then I
11/11.
sent you dates, and I'm like, "I've got the 8th or the 11th at 11." You're like, 11/11. Duh, perfect.
I know. And as we were
Yeah,
talking, my phone went ding, and I looked over and I was like, "Oh, it's 11/11 on 11/11,"
today.
as we're in the middle
I
of our
know.
interview. Oh gosh.
I love us. I
I
love
love
us.
us.
I love you. I love so many. I'm sorry we didn't get into all the amazing things you're doing outside of your acting, but this is actually where it's all at, is just the essence of
Mm.
you, because the
Oh.
essence of you is in all that you do. So everybody, please check her out in every single aspect. Do you want to tell people where to find you, my dear?
Yeah, sure. I am only on Instagram, so it's at Teresa Palmer, Teresa Palmer, Palmer. And you can also listen to our podcast. It's called the Mother Days podcast. It's sort of just a mashup of parenting, but a lot of it is this talk, like spirituality and that little niche that I love so much. And then you can also check out lovewell.earth, which is my organic wellness supplements. We have 5 different lovely products there. So hopefully you guys will respond to one of those things. And this has been a great pleasure. Thank you so much, Candace.
It's been my pleasure. By the way, I need some of those products. I don't know why I'm late to that bandwagon, but I was just looking them up
Oh
and
my
I'm
God,
like,
I'm
that's
sending
for
you
me.
them. Sending them.
Send me. I'm
Done.
obsessed. I'm like, what, why
Done.
do I not have this? What
Yeah.
crazy. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again, my dear friend. You have made my day. And I'm sure many people listening to this right now, you have such profound stories and words, and just your energy is coming through in the most incredible, pure way as it always has. So I want to thank you so much. And
Mm.
I'll see you soon.